When many people think about the Hawley-Smoot Tariff, this is what they think about.
In 1930, the Republican-controlled House of Representatives, in an effort to alleviate the effects of the anyone, the Great Depression, passed the anyone, the tariff bill, the Hawley-Smoot Tariff Act, which anyone raised tariffs in an effort to collect more revenue for the federal government. Did it work? Anyone know the effects? It did not work, and the United States sank deeper into the Great Depression.
So, tariffs are in the news here quite a bit lately, and there is a mistaken belief on the part of some that the actual start of the Great Depression was the Hawley-Smoot Tariff. That is a little bit complicated, as there were many factors that went into creating the Great Depression, and the Hawley-Smoot Tariff was not one of those. Now, the agricultural sector in the United States had been experiencing a downturn for nearly a decade by the time the stock market crashed in October of 1929. And part of this goes back to World War I. If you look at the fact that a lot of the breadbasket of Europe was actually involved in fighting during that conflict, it became problematic for the Allies in terms of feeding themselves. So the United States government, in an attempt to encourage American farmers to produce more, they set an artificially high floor on the price per bushel that wheat and other agricultural commodities might draw, because they wanted to not just feed the United States, but also feed the army that was fighting over in Europe, as well as their European allies. So, what happens when the war is over? Actually, Europe goes back to producing food rather than fighting a war, and that leads to oversupply. And when you have too much supply, what does that lead to? That leads to lower prices. Well, lower prices, you have to produce more in order to make as much money as you made the year before, which inflates the supply more, which will actually deflate the price more because you want to move your grain a little bit more quickly. So, what that leads to is a downward spiral in grain prices. I've read some estimates that grain prices on wheat actually dropped to about a 400-year low immediately after the First World War. So, farmers in the United States were having a lot of problems feeding themselves. Keep in mind that farmers are perpetually in debt. That becomes problematic because a lot of people have actually speculated at this time. And what they're speculating on is number one, land, number two, stocks. And in a lot of instances, they are very highly levered. So when they go to buy stock, they actually take out margin loans, sometimes for about 5% of the purchase price, which means they're basically levered with about 1/20th of what the actual cost of the stock would be. And when the market crashes in October 1929, that speculation leads to margin calls, which people can then not pay back, which means that banks do not have money on hand. And when people go to, take their money out when they start to panic, the first few people get their money back, and then the rest of them, their money has basically gone into the ether. So there's not money in circulation. There is, a lack of credit available. So the gears of commerce in the United States are already slowing down because of this depression in the farming sector, as well as this rampant speculation that leads to a margin call effectively when the stock market crashes in October 1929. Now, to sort of make up a little bit of the tax revenue, and also to try to encourage American businesses to employ Americans rather than ship their jobs and their goods overseas, the Hawley-Smoot Tariff is passed in mid 1930. Now, does that cause the depression? No, the depression is already well underway at this point, but it does cut down on both exports from the United States. So it hurts the market access for American businesses, and it also cuts down on imports to the United States, because one of the things with tariffs is the fact that when you raise them on other countries, guess what? They can turn around and raise them on you. And what happens is the gears of international commerce are now going to grind to a halt. So not only is the United States affected, but also Europe and the rest of the world, with the exception of the USSR, which is trying to industrialize apart from the global monetary system because it's communist at the time. So basically, the rest of the world grinds to a halt. So the Hawley-Smoot Tariff does not start the Depression and cause the Depression, but it probably did contribute to its deepening and actually lengthening the Depression for a period of time, although the extent to which that is the case is a little bit up for grabs. So anyway, I hope that explains whether or not the Hawley-Smoot Tariff actually, started the Great Depression. It did not, but it might have actually deepened it and caused it to last longer than it might have otherwise done. So hopefully that explains it for you. Have a great day.